Let's create something awesome in Game Devs. Tony Chan here, and welcome to episode 58 of Game Dev Loadout, where I chat with the best people in our industry 7 days a week. We will learn how they got started, the obstacles they face, and the tools they use for success. And now let's chat with today's featured guest, Nick Reinhart. Nick, it is a game time. Are you ready?
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to it.
Yes, he is the live producer for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes at EA. He helps to design the goals and strategy, which includes a significant character releases, monetization opportunities, and anticipating players' needs. So go ahead, Nick, give us a bit about your personal life and how you got started in the game industry.
Sure. So my experience in games is actually a fairly new one. I've only been in the industry for about 2 years. I grew up with games, playing Dungeons and Dragons. I played pen and paper riffs. I obviously, like most people our age, I grew up with Mario Brothers and all that. And I, like most people, lifelong player of games. And then I thought, well, I'm not a programmer, I'm not an artist, so I'll never get to work in it. And so I took kind of a weird path to get there. My education is my background is I'm a political scientist, and then I have a master's in international relations, and I have a master's in statistics. And so I did about 5 years working for the oil industry in New York, where I ran a team, an operations team that helped move oil into the States. And then from there, I went and worked for the federal government, for the Agency for International Development, and adjacent to the State Department as well, working on building out a method by which, refining a method by which we could give aid to countries. And I spent a couple years doing that. And then a buddy of mine basically bullied me. He said, "Hey man, you wanna do games, right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but they're never gonna hire a social science nerd like me." And he's like, "Apply." So I applied to spite him. And then instead of me being able to go back and say, "See, they didn't hire me, they hired me." So I guess he won. And so I've been working at Star Wars Galaxy. I've been working on Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes for 2 years. I came on as a data scientist, where I helped build models and some of the infrastructure around which we analyze player behavior, see where they're getting hung up in the game, where are some opportunities to make it better for them. And then about a year ago, I transitioned into being the live producer. And the live producer at EA, so EA is sort of strange in that it has a producer culture. So the producer and most other parts of the industry are kind of more scheduling and project managers. And in EA, the producer is sort of like the key product owner. So they're the person that's responsible. So if the producer in other places is the how and when of something getting made, my job is sort of the what and why is getting put into the game.
Gotcha. And what's cool is that your friend actually technically or kind of helped you got that job by kind of forcing you to apply for that job or something. Yeah. That's so funny. Now, what is something we probably don't know about in your expertise of being a live producer that we should?
Yeah. So, just to talk about, the live production side of work is that what you're doing is you think of things like Assassin's Creed versus League of Legends. And like the key differences between those games is that one is sort of a quote unquote single serving experience. There will be DLC and other stuff, but you don't think of that as a game that's constantly living, sort of constantly changing. And you think about something like League of Legends, it's always changing. They're always sort of tuning the characters. They're always introducing new things. And so my game falls more in the latter. We're constantly introducing new features, new characters. We're changing the way some of our older characters work, etc. And so a big part of the work that I do is trying to imagine players' experiences over time. And so that means thinking about what does it mean to engage with a piece of content now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. And at points where I and my team and others around me think that falls down, how do we make sure that stays propped up and stays interesting? Yeah, so it's about wearing a lot of hats. It's thinking as, imagine I'm a brand new player. Imagine I'm a very old player. Imagine I'm a player that spent no money. Imagine I'm a player that spent a lot of money. How do they experience those things through time? And how do we keep trying to take our content and continue to make it feel invigorating and challenging?
Definitely. It's like a way to keep the retention, basically, to keep them engaged, keep them playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, retention's a big part of it, and also the engagement. But I mean, beyond even the key metrics, it's also just this like really fundamental experiential part of it, right? Like Star Wars, the game I work, it's such a huge library of characters, and we have so much to draw on that, for us, it's really also about just delivering on core Star Wars authentic experiences. Being able to live out these ideas of, oh man, what if Darth Vader and Yoda fought on the same side, or like, when are they going to bring in the Night Sisters or something like that, and just always being able to deliver on players' expectations and experience desires. Because, like, what is so incredible about my job is that, I have 1 million people every day that I try to entertain. That's like an incredible thing, and at times it's overwhelming, but it's like super exciting to think like, holy cow, I've got these millions of people that I'm trying to keep entertained.
Yeah. And I can't imagine that, because Star Wars is a huge franchise, and I think like one mistake and someone might really go off on you or something like that.
Well, I mean, the fans are definitely passionate. I mean, like, Star Wars is something that you need to be precious with. It's a very precious thing.
For sure, I can imagine that. Now, speaking of mistakes or not, trying to make the fans mad or anything, what are common mistakes that you think people make, even at a pro level?
I think that there's a trap that developers can fall into where, and I think all developers are guilty of this, is that you think you design a core experience and you think about it the first 2 or 3 times and you think like, well, this is good, this is repeatable, but that it's really hard to think about it beyond that period of, beyond that initial first period. And so, what I would ultimately counsel most people for is that you need a good core experience. You need a good core loop around things, but you also need to make sure that you have all the tuning knobs in place. And it's expensive. It's expensive up front to think about, well, what if I'm going to want to make it where I can change power later or other things, or how do I cage this event so that it looks in such a way that I can reinvigorate the front end of it, or reinvigorate the rules work. It's hard to think about how in the future you're going to want to be able to mess with it. And so you need to spend a lot more time up front building in the ways to mess with it, and engaging your players and saying to them, I'm going to change this. And it be, a contract between you and the player, so they know that when you change it, it's because you're trying to make it better. Because you also don't want to trick them, right? Like, oh, I've been playing the same thing for, a year, and now all of a sudden it's different. Well, that's not fun, right? But if you make that initial contract with the player that says, this is the way it's going to be for a while, but I can change things, and I want you to, come and experience the change with me. That's exciting, and it's hard to do. It's hard to think about all those permutations up front.
I love that idea of telling the players up front of, changing the game in the future, because you're letting the players know that things aren't always going to be the same. Like, and so if a change happens, they know that you were going to do that. It's just not out of the blue.
Right. I mean, and yeah, super important. And it's because players have expectations about the way things work, and you don't, they're here playing because they like what you do, right? That's why they're here. So, don't alienate them. It's a really important part of it.
Definitely. Now, let's take this on a more personal level. And you only been in the gaming industry for 2 years, so I'm curious if you had any bad moments in your career, that one moment that's still vivid in your mind. Do you have any personal stories?
Yeah, so it doesn't have a lot to do with production at the moment, and it's for anybody that's listening that's a statistics nerd or a data scientist. I should be shamed for this one, but when I first came on and was doing data science, I was running an A/B test, and for those that aren't familiar, it's where players are shown, one set of players is shown one thing, and one set of players are shown another thing. And we were doing this early on in soft launch as we were doing some tuning around a couple parts of the game. And what I found was I was going through and I did my analysis, and after a week after I'd submitted my results, I realized that I had switched the A and the B. And so what I thought was control was experiment, what was experiment was control.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a minor quibble, but it actually had an impact on the game, and we ultimately were able to recover from it. It wasn't, but it's a very, I spent all that time building out this really incredible, experiment. I had all my statistics right, and I had literally made a keystroke mistake. And And it was, and we were able to fix it. It didn't cause any long-term problems, but it's a good reminder to always be diligent and double check your work.
Yeah, those things are so delicate, and you're right. Like, I'm a market researcher myself, so I know how important data is. And yeah, just one little tiny mistake can change the whole data. And hey, you're right. You just have to be really, really careful about those information. What do you want to make sure a game does take away from that experience?
Again, just be diligent. I mean, I think it's also, to be fair, I actually think the other good thing that came out of that is to really always think about it in terms of double checking your work and having a second set of eyes. And it's hard, I think, especially. So I'm lucky in that I get to work in EA. It's a larger than normal studio, so there's other people for me to interact with, but the importance of having a second set of eyes and somebody else, a fellow dev, a fellow studio to look over things, it's immensely important. Because there's, as chasing down a bug or chasing down something else, it can bedevil you. It can eat up a whole day's of time. And if you have a regular interaction with someone else that's sort of in this buddy system or understands your system at least partially as well as you do, it can save you a lot of time and a lot of heartache.
Oh yeah, having like a buddy that also encourage you as well. They could do a lot of things, but having someone like an accountability partner could really be helpful. Yeah, for sure. Now that you're more, experienced and better, and now you're actually a live producer, like, what do you think was the best investment you've made? And it can be investment of money, time, or energy. And how did you decide to make that investment?
Sure. So, this one's sort of a tricky one because I think there's a couple. I don't have a single one. I would say doing something other than games first was really important. Now, I obviously don't know the counterfactual. I don't know the Nick Reinhart that went and immediately did games and how well he did. But I will say that working in a lot of different contexts and thinking about problems in a lot of different ways has served me really well. And the number of techniques I use, as my time as a manager in the oil industry, and the techniques I use in analysis and modeling from my time with the government, games are really just giant, complex, sort of social systems, social problems. And so if you can think about them, if you have enough experiences observing these large social systems and interacting with them in a couple different ways and thinking about them in a couple different ways, I think that's immensely powerful and really useful to thinking downstream. And then I also think it's really important to have a really varied formal and informal education. And I say that only because the main thing that I find, when you make a game, when you make software, it's a giant intellectual pursuit, be it thinking through a problem, designing a logic flow, analyzing what's the best art, etc. So seeing a lot of different context, being able to draw on your own personal experiences, but also having been shown a lot of skills, having a lot of different things to draw on, I think is really important. I mean, and the TLDR version of this is be a jack of all trades, understand a lot of stuff.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, you understand a lot of the mechanics of what goes into a game. And once you understand what other people do, you get a better idea of how their process works, so you could better work with them. And so now that the game industry is booming every year, what are you most excited about today?
You mean game-wise?
Yeah.
It's funny, catching up on the back catalog. That's what when I first moved out here, I had my first child immediately. And so, not me, my wife. But so I've actually been in the midst of starting a game industry job and raising a baby. And so I've only recently started to find myself have some time to go back and enjoy things and play through. I think the last big one I finished was Horizon Zero Dawn. Was really excited about that. There's a new fighting game coming out that I ran into with a buddy recently called Absolver, which is like this really interesting open world melee combat game. That looks really exciting. And then I also, I think my definition of gamer is that if you just play video games, you're not a gamer. And so, you got to be playing card games and board games and hide and go seek and all that other stuff. So I've got a game called The Bloody Inn where it's a French countryside and you're running a hotel where you murder people. I'm pretty excited about that one. just I love games and I love playing different games. So pretty much anything that passes across my desk, I'll take a bite out of and take a look into. Yeah, it's sort of the rambling answer of all games. Yes, please.
Yes, you want to play? And I see. How old is your kid now?
She's 2.
2? Oh, wow. Okay, 2. Oh, yeah. You say you had the baby when you started the industry. Because I have a 4-month baby now, and I just started this podcast, and so finding time to game, it's pretty hard.
Yeah, you don't have as much. I mean, between it's already the joke in the industry is that when you start making games, you don't get to play them anymore. That's made all the more complicated by having a child. But congratulations to you, Tony. I didn't know you had a 4-month-old. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And what's funny is I'm actually trying to. I was playing here, Horizon Zero Dawn, and I just stopped. I just don't have time. I can't. I want to finish it too, but
yeah,
I find time.
Yeah.
Awesome. The show isn't over yet, Game Dust. We have reached a crunch time, the phase that is dreaded, but we are here to overcome it. Basically, Nick, I will ask you quick questions, and you'll be giving us a ton of valuable information in return. Are you ready to crush it and release the show?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. What was holding you back from joining the game industry?
Lack of confidence that my skills were desired, pure and simple.
And what's cool is your friend helped you get the job. That's just so cool. What's a personal habit that contributes to your success?
I'm always learning. I make time every night to sit down and be working on a new skill and a new process or something. So for instance, in my evening times, I've been teaching myself how to manage a Jira instance. I also act as a tech ops guy, and I run an Amazon instance and install software onto it. And I also try my hand building my own little play games, building little card games and stuff. So always learning, always working on building something new. It helps to be intellectually promiscuous.
Let me ask you this. So, you want to keep learning, but is learning too much of different things the wrong way to approach it?
It's a good point. I mean, I guess if I learned to juggle, I doubt that's directly applicable to video games. Always learning something that has adjacency to video games, I guess is probably a way to think about it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because I do want to learn a lot of stuff, but I don't want to overwhelm myself.
Sure. I mean, and everybody's gonna have a different threshold for it. But for instance, if you want to make a cooking game, or if you want to do something else, you should probably cook a little bit and see what it's. Yeah.
Ooh, that's great advice. Now, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So I actually can't think of any good advice that I've I don't have a moment where my dad sat me down or anything like that. But there's one of my favorite statisticians. His name is George Box. He said, all models are wrong, but some are useful. And that's a really important thing that I always use, is that it basically says to me, you should try to model how people are going to react or do things. It's not going to be true, but it still means that you can learn something about it. And I think that's a really important thing about not having analysis paralysis, that you have to be willing to try and to try to understand what's going to happen and try to account for it.
Interesting. What resources should we game devs use?
So I also fall into a weird thing here, in that, again, I approach things really probably overly formally, but I go to Pact, PACKT, for a lot of their books. I go there, I'm not good on internet resources. I sit down and get manuals and sit down and read through them. So that's what I would recommend other people do, but I'm an old, boring man. So
No, I highly recommend the manuals, because those manuals are detailed, it's so detailed of what they tell you of whatever you're trying to use. So yeah. I believe that people skip the manuals, and I just think that's a really bad idea. They should definitely read the manuals, and there's so much good information in there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%.
Now, this next question is a bit of a doozy, so take your time if you need to. Imagine you woke up the next morning in a brand new world, and you knew no one. You still have all the experience and knowledge you currently have today. Your food and shelter is taken care of, and you have a laptop. What would you do step by step on the path to become a great game developer?
My job as a producer is about bringing people together with a lot of different skills and having them execute against a common vision. So what I'd probably do is the first thing I always do is try to get people together. Try to get them together, try to find something that they all want to accomplish in common. And if we're in this brand new world where we're, I don't know, all of a sudden we don't know each other, and we probably don't. I immediately went to a post-apocalypse, which is a bit strange. But, so back to my post-apocalyptic world. Yeah, we're probably bored. So, get people together, start figuring out what are they bored about or what are some things they miss from their world before the apocalypse, and start figuring out something that would make people happy. Sort the people by skills, figure out who can do what, and figure out what makes them bummed out, and then figure out what they'd rather be doing and make a game about it.
Yeah, that's how you do market research right there. Team up with people, research the trend, research the market, and, find out what they like and create a game for that. Nick, we have reached the end. Go ahead and give us a parting piece of guidance and how we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay, great. Be intellectually promiscuous and never give up.
Never give up. And how can we connect with you?
You can connect on me on the forums at Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I go by the forum handle CG Top Hat.
Ooh, keep an eye for that, guys. Nick, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, and for that, we are truly grateful, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you, Tony, for having me.
Thank you, Game Devs, for listening, and remember that knowledge is only potential power. Execution is the game. I am so excited to announce our first sponsored giveaway with Game Dev Underground, where a winner can get a free 1-hour consultation with the founder, Tim Rusbeck. So if you have any questions on building and launching your game, get on this giveaway ASAP. This is a $1,000 value, and it can be yours. All you have to do is go to the show notes page at GameDevLoadout.com and sign up for my email list. That's it. So until then, keep on making great games, and I will catch you on the next episode. Bye.